Have you ever had one of those days where everything just feels a little off? The world seems a bit gray, and you feel disconnected. And then something small happens. An unexpected kindness from a stranger, a simple smile, a helping hand when you didn't even know you needed it. And suddenly, the whole color of your day changes. That's the magic we're exploring tonight. On a perfect, crisp autumn day in a quiet neighborhood where the leaves are just beginning to turn gold, a single, simple gesture sets off a chain reaction. It's a current of warmth and generosity passed from one stranger to another, each person unaware of the beautiful link they are creating. It's a story about how the smallest acts of kindness can travel, grow, and circle back in the most unexpected ways. Join us as we follow this beautiful domino effect of kindness and discover how one small act can ripple through an entire town, changing the course of a day for everyone it touches. There is a day, just one, that arrives each year in early autumn. It doesn't announce itself on any calendar, but you know it when it's here. It's a day when the world seems to pause, take a slow, deep breath, and gently step from the warm, hazy dream of summer into the crisp, golden clarity of autumn. This was that day. In the quiet neighborhood of Maple Street, the morning sun cast long, soft shadows across manicured lawns. The light was different, no longer the bright, demanding glare of July, but a gentler, more forgiving gold that seemed to coat everything in a layer of quiet magic. It was on this morning that Alara, the woman who lived in apartment 3A of the old brick building at number 14, slid her window open, not all the way, just a few inches, creating a small space for the day to enter. She closed her eyes and leaned forward, allowing the air to greet her. It was perfect. It carried the last whispers of summer's greenness, but underneath there was a new scent, a cool, clean promise of changing seasons. It smelled of damp earth, of leaves just beginning to think about letting go, and of a sky that was a deeper, more settled shade of blue. She paused there for a long moment, simply breathing, feeling the gentle breeze on her face, a quiet communion with the morning. She thought to herself that this was the true meaning of mindfulness and a gratitude attitude, to feel every single moment. Her small apartment was a sanctuary of calm. Books were stacked neatly on shelves. A soft, though well-loved armchair sat in the corner, and the faint, sweet aroma of chamomile tea was beginning to fill the air. She turned from the window, her bare feet silent on the old wooden floor, and picked up the warm, fragrant cup from her desk. She brought it to her lips not just to drink, but to feel the steam rise and warm the tip of her nose, a tiny personal ritual that helped her find peace in the present moment. Through the open window, the quiet symphony of the neighborhood drifted in, the whirring sound of a bicycle's wheels spinning. Down the street, the cheerful bark of a distant dog, the faint, elegant notes of a classical piano piece floating up from an apartment 2 floors below. These small things brought a joy that felt like discovering the surprising power of random acts of kindness. It's both an indoor and an outdoor day, Alara whispered to herself, a delighted smile spreading across her face. Her smile was a gentle thing, one that reached her eyes and revealed the tiny, kind lines that life had etched at their corners. These were her favorite days. The ones where you could feel cozy inside with a warm drink, yet feel the irresistible pull of the perfect world just outside your window. She felt this was truly the best way for how to romanticize your life. Finishing her tea, she placed the empty mug by the sink. For a moment, she regarded her reflection in the small mirror framed within her coat rack. It was a familiar face, one that showed the passage of time, not in harshness, but in a soft sort of wisdom. She gathered her long silver-streaked hair and twisted it into a hasty but elegant braid, then wrapped a soft, patterned scarf around her neck, its fabric a comforting weight. Her eyes scanned the hooks, landing on a long, soft sweater. It was a simple garment, a gentle gray color, but it was her favorite. She had owned it for at least 20 years, and it had become a part of her story. There was a small, almost invisible hole on the inside of the right sleeve, a tiny imperfection that only she knew was there, a reminder of a snag on a rosebush in a garden long ago. She loved this sweater, its familiar softness like a hug from an old friend. It reminded her of the life-changing magic of a positive mindset. She hadn't worn it since the last chilly day of spring months ago, and pulling it on now felt like a welcome return, a quiet celebration of the new season. With her slouchy handbag over her shoulder and her comfortable, low-heeled shoes on her feet, she stepped out of her apartment, the familiar click of the lock behind her echoing in the quiet hallway. It was a sound that always made her feel secure, a promise to her beloved home with its gold lettering that read 3A. "I will see you later," she thought, a silent farewell. She turned and began to descend the stairs, her steps light. When she reached the landing of the second floor, a younger woman from apartment 2A was just locking her own door. The woman, whose name was Chloe, was wrestling with a large, awkward cardboard box, her brow furrowed in concentration. As Chloe turned, she nearly collided with Alara. For a moment, they both stood there, surprised, and then they both broke into laughter, a shared, spontaneous sound that brightened the hallway. The box was so large that Chloe could barely see over it, her view of the stairs completely obscured. Her face was a picture of mild frustration. "Oh, I'm so sorry," Chloe said, trying to shift the box to one side. Alara just smiled kindly. She had seen that look of determination mixed with annoyance many times in her life. Without a word, she stepped forward. "Here, let me help you with that," she said, her voice soft. She took one end of the big box, her grip firm. The simple act of sharing the load instantly changed everything. Chloe let out a sigh of relief as her view cleared, and she could finally see the steps in front of her. This small act was a living example of the ripple effect of a single good deed. "Oh, thank you so much," Chloe said, her voice filled with genuine gratitude. Together they navigated the remaining flight of stairs, a silent, coordinated team. The box was heavy, but sharing it made the task feel light. They reached the ground floor, and the echo of their footsteps gave way to the gentle hum of the building's entryway. It was easy enough for Chloe to then guide the box through the front door and push it into the trunk of her car. parked at the curb. She turned back to Alara, her face bright with appreciation. "Thank you again. You're a lifesaver." Alara simply nodded, a warm smile on her face. She watched as Chloe got into her car, then turned and began her own walk down the sun-dappled street. Chloe watched her go, a woman wrapped in a cozy sweater and a soft scarf, looking for all the world like she was off on a quiet, wonderful adventure. The simple, unexpected act of help from her upstairs neighbor had already made the beautiful autumn day feel even brighter. She started her car, feeling good about the world, ready to continue her own journey and carry that small spark of warmth with her. This experience was proof that kindness is contagious, and its effect is far-reaching. As Chloe pulled away from the curb, a warmth spread through her that had nothing to do with the sun streaming through her windshield. It was the simple, lingering heat of a kind gesture. Alara's offer to help hadn't been a grand or dramatic act, but it had been exactly what she needed in that moment. It was a small reminder that she wasn't alone in her daily struggles, that a stranger could see her need and offer a hand without a second thought. So, this feeling underscored the importance of empathy in everyday life. That feeling stayed with her as she navigated the quiet suburban streets towards the post and office. She found herself driving more slowly, more deliberately. The world outside her window seemed more vibrant. She noticed the way the golden autumn light filtered through the leaves of the old oak trees, creating dancing patterns on the pavement. A gentle breeze sent a cascade of the first fallen leaves skittering across the road in front of her car, a tiny, joyful whirlwind of red and gold. She stopped for a pedestrian she might have otherwise hurried past, offering a small, patient wave. The person, a young student with a heavy backpack, smiled back in surprise. That small exchange felt good, a tiny echo of the kindness she had just been shown. This experience of receiving kindness and then passing it demonstrated how to spread positivity. The journey was short. The post office was a familiar, unassuming brick building, a place of routine and errands. She wrestled the large box out of her trunk, the memory of her struggle on the stairs, making her appreciate its solid weight on the ground. She closed the trunk lid with her hip, a maneuver that felt far less clumsy this time, and carried the box inside. The interior of the post office was quiet, with the gentle hum of fluorescent lights and the rhythmic thump-thump of the postal clerk's stamp. There was only one person ahead of her, so she took her place in line, resting the heavy package on a nearby counter while she waited. As she stood there, the bell on the door chimed softly, and an older man with neatly combed, silver hair stepped inside. He moved with a careful, deliberate pace. In his hand, he held a single, crisp, white envelope. He took his place in line directly behind Chloe, and she felt a small, familiar pang of guilt. She knew her package would take time. There would be weighing and taping, and the inevitable fumbling for her wallet. His task, on the other hand, looked simple and quick. He smiled at her, a polite and patient smile that held no hint of hurry, and nodded a quiet greeting. But Chloe saw the slight tension in his shoulders, the way he held the letter as if it were something important, a task that needed to be completed. In that moment, she thought of Alara on the stairs. She thought of how a few moments of someone else's time had completely changed her own mood. This realization reinforced the idea that small gestures, big impact, the power of consideration. Without hesitating, she turned to the man. "Please," she said, gesturing towards the counter. "You go ahead. I have this big box, and it's going to take a minute. You only have a letter." The man's eyes widened slightly in surprise. "Oh no, my dear," he said, his voice gentle. "You were here first. It's really no trouble to wait." It was the polite refusal she expected, the kind people give when they don't want to impose. But Chloe insisted, a warm and genuine smile on her face. "Honestly, I don't mind at all. I'd feel better if you went first." She felt the truth in her own words. It wasn't a sacrifice. It felt good to offer. This act of selfless generosity highlighted the art of giving without expectation. The man's expression softened, the politeness in his eyes replaced by a look of genuine gratitude. He smiled broadly, this time a real, heartfelt smile. "Well, that is very kind of you. Thank you." Just then, the clerk at the counter called out, "Next, please." The man gratefully stepped around Chloe and her large box. He purchased his single stamp, placed it carefully on the corner of the envelope, and slid it into the mail slot. In less than a minute, he was done. He turned back to Chloe, gave her another warm nod, and was on his way, a little lightness in his step. As he walked out, Chloe stepped up to the counter, and the clerk began helping her mail her box. The process took several minutes, just as she had expected, but she didn't feel impatient at all. She was too busy reflecting on how a simple decision could lead to such a positive chain of events, a perfect example of creating your own sunshine, the power of a positive outlook. Arthur, the silver-haired man, stepped back out into the beautiful autumn afternoon, his hands now free. The letter was gone, sent on its way. It was a simple piece of business, something he had been putting off for days, but having it done felt like a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. The kindness of the young woman in the post office had been the perfect, unexpected grace note to the task. It had turned a mundane chore into a pleasant memory. This was a clear demonstration of finding joy in the mundane. Feeling a surge of contentment, he decided he deserved a small treat. His favorite coffee shop was just around the corner, a cozy little place that always smelled of roasted coffee, beans, and cinnamon. As he walked, he thought about what he might order. Perhaps something with pumpkin spice in it. It was the season for it, after all. As he neared the shop, a single, perfect maple leaf, a brilliant shade of orange, blew across his path and settled at his feet. He paused to look at it, a tiny, intricate piece of art created by nature. He was really looking forward to the coming weeks, when the entire neighborhood would be ablaze with color. He blew on his hands, noticing for the first time that there was a genuine chill in the air. He reached the door of the coffee shop and pulled it open. The delicate chime of the bell above announcing his arrival. He stepped inside and the world transformed. The air was warm and fragrant, a comforting cloud of coffee and baked goods. The shop was his sanctuary, a place he had been coming to for years. It was furnished with charmingly imperfect mismatched armchairs, and small wooden tables. It was a place that felt lived in, a space designed for comfort, not just for commerce. In one corner, a low table held a large jigsaw puzzle that was in a constant state of progress. Regular patrons would stop and add a piece or two, a quiet, communal project. This sense of shared community reminded him of building connections through simple acts. Arthur took a moment to look around the room appreciatively before approaching the coffee bar. The woman behind the counter, her apron faded from years of use, greeted him with a familiar smile. "The usual Arthur?" she asked. He winked at her dramatically. "Today, I'm going rogue," he announced with a playful flourish. He ordered one of the special autumn drinks, a spiced latte that promised warmth and comfort. She responded with a knowing grin and turned away to start making his order. As he waited, he gazed out the large front window. On a bench just outside, a young man was sitting, his head bent over his phone. Beside him, sitting patiently, was a beautiful, fluffy dog with a thick coat of gray and black fur. The dog's tail gave a gentle thump-thump against the bench as it watched the people go by, its intelligent eyes missing nothing. Arthur turned back to the woman behind the counter. "Do you happen to have any of those free dog treats today?" he asked quietly. "You know, those little frozen desserts you call pup cups?" The woman looked up from the steaming milk, a surprised but amused expression on her face. "Are you finally getting a dog, Arthur? Or is this for your invisible friend?" she joked. He laughed. No, but I spotted a very good friend outside who looks like she would certainly enjoy one." The woman leaned over the counter to peer out the window. Her face broke into a wide grin. "Oh yes, I know that good girl," she said warmly. "That's Freya. She does occasionally get a pup cup when her owner comes inside." She reached down into the small fridge beneath the counter, pulled out a small cup filled with whipped cream, and pushed it across the counter to Arthur. This simple act of noticing and caring for a creature showed Arthur's compassion for animals and others. He paid for his drink and the pup cup, dropping a generous amount into the tip jar by the register. He placed his own warm cup on a small, out-of-the-way table next to a huge, velvety armchair that looked perfect for sinking into. But first, he had a delivery to make. Pushing the ringing door open again, he stepped back into the cool air and approached the young man on the bench. He stopped at a polite distance, not wanting to intrude. "Excuse me," he said gently. The young man looked up from his phone, a questioning look in his eyes. "I was wondering," Arthur continued, holding out the small cup, "if I could offer you a pup cup for your faithful companion." "Of course. Here is the third part of your story. I've continued the narrative while seamlessly integrating the motivational SEO keywords and video titles you requested, all of which are bolded." The young man on the bench looked from the small cup in Arthur's hand to Arthur's kind, smiling face, and then back again. For a moment, he seemed completely taken aback, as if a stranger offering a treat to his dog was the most unexpected thing in the world. Then a slow, wide grin spread across his face, lighting up his features. "Wow," he said, his voice filled with genuine surprise and delight. "That is incredibly nice of you. Are you sure this was a perfect illustration of the impact of unexpected kindness. Arthur simply chuckled, a warm rumbling sound. Of course, she looks like she deserves it. He extended the cup a little further. It's from the coffee shop. They call it a pup cup. The young man took the cup, his smile growing even wider. Freya, look what this nice man brought you, he said, his voice soft as he turned to his dog. Freya, the Norwegian elkhound, who had been watching the exchange with intelligent, curious eyes, immediately perked up at the sound of her name. Her fluffy tail began to wag, a happy, rhythmic thump against the wooden bench. The young man placed the cup on the ground in front of her, and Freya dipped her nose in, her tongue eagerly lapping up the whipped cream. She was delicate and surprisingly neat for a dog enjoying a treat with such enthusiasm. Arthur watched, a deep sense of satisfaction settling over him. It was such a small thing, a simple cup of whipped cream, but the pure, uncomplicated joy it brought to both the dog and her owner was a reward in itself. He felt a connection to this young man and his beautiful dog, a fleeting but meaningful bond, forged in a moment of shared kindness. This was proof of finding connection in small moments. As Freya happily finished her treat, Arthur found himself asking, "Is she a husky?" "She has the most beautiful coat." The younger man looked up, shaking his head. "No, but a lot of people ask that. She's a Norwegian elkhound. Her name is Freya." He reached down and affectionately scratched behind Freya's ears, and she leaned into his touch contentedly. "Freya," Arthur repeated, savoring the name. "It suits her. She's a lovely companion." He felt a pang of nostalgia for a dog he had owned many years ago, a loyal friend who had shared countless quiet afternoons just like this one. "She's the best," the young man agreed, his voice filled with affection. Arthur gave Freya one last gentle pat on her fluffy head. "Well, I should let you two continue your walk," he said, a warm smile still on his face. "I have a hot drink waiting for me inside, and it's calling my name." The young man nodded, his own gratitude evident in his eyes. "Thank you again, sir. That was really kind of you. Have a wonderful afternoon." Arthur simply nodded in return and walked back towards the coffee shop. He watched as the thoughtful gentleman disappeared behind the glass door, the small bell chiming his re-entry. The young man, whose name was Leo, felt a renewed sense of connection to his quiet town. It was moments like this, small, unprompted acts of kindness from strangers, that made it feel like a real community, a place where people looked out for one another. It was a perfect example of the science of happiness, why giving feels good. He stood up, stretching his arms. "Ready to go, girl?" he asked Freya, who was now happily licking her nose, getting the last remnants of the whipped cream. She responded with an enthusiastic wag of her tail, and the two of them stood up to continue their walk. As they set off down the street, Leo found himself paying more attention to the world around him, practicing the art of noticing, finding beauty in the everyday. He noticed the festive window displays that were starting to appear in the shop fronts. Autumn had truly arrived, and the town was embracing it. There were arrangements of colorful gourds, bundles of cinnamon sticks tied with twine, and signs advertising apple cider and pumpkin-flavored everything. The whole town seemed to be wrapping itself in a cozy, autumnal embrace. His attention was drawn ahead of them, where Freya had stopped to sniff at something small and fluffy, lying in the middle of the pavement. Leo walked over and bent down to pick it up. It was a tiny, adorable knit hat designed for a baby with two small round bear ears on top. It was soft and clearly handmade. He looked up and down the street, and then he saw her, a woman pushing a stroller about a block ahead of them. As he watched, a small chubby hand emerged from the side of the stroller and, with a delighted giggle, tossed a small stuffed toy onto the pavement behind it. The woman, seemingly lost in her own thoughts, didn't notice. Leo chuckled to himself. It was a classic scene, one he had witnessed many times. He jogged forward, the little bear hat in one hand, Freya trotting happily at his side. "Excuse me," he called out, his voice friendly. The woman stopped and turned, a slightly weary but kind expression on her face. She looked at him with a hint of confusion. "Are you talking to me?" she asked. Leo, now slightly out of breath, held out the little hat. "I think you might have lost this," he said with a smile. Then he pointed to the small stuffed animal lying a few feet behind her. And that one too. He was living out the concept of pay it forward, a simple idea to change the world. From inside the stroller, a small happy gurgle erupted. The woman clapped a hand to the side of her head, a look of amused exasperation on her face. "Oh my goodness, of course. She's in her throwing phase," she said, her voice a mix of tiredness and affection. She gratefully took the hat from Leo as he leaned over to pick up the fallen toy. "Thank you so much. I would have been looking for that hat all evening." "No problem at all," Leo said, handing her the toy. He gave a small wave and a smile, then turned to continue his walk with Freya. As she pushed the stroller onwards, the woman, whose name was Sarah, leaned down and tucked the hat and toy securely into a pocket. Her little one had been going through a sleep regression, and her nights and days had become a blurry, exhausting cycle. This small, kind interaction had lifted her spirits in a way she hadn't expected. It showed how a small act can change your entire day. Her toddler, Lily, began to babble cheerfully, waving at people they passed. The adults, caught off guard by the tiny friendly gesture, couldn't help but smile and wave back. Sarah found herself slipping into a quiet reverie as she walked. But her peaceful daydream was interrupted when she noticed a uniformed figure a block away. It was a parking warden, methodically checking meters. As she got closer, she realized that the car parked just ahead of her was out of time. The parking meter was flashing a menacing red. Sarah paused, her eyes drawn to the car. On its bumper, there was a colorful sticker that ran up, "I break for quilting bees," and another with the logo of a local animal rescue. It was a car that belonged to someone who was a part of the community. She looked from the flashing meter to the approaching parking warden and felt a surge of protective empathy. A parking ticket was the kind of frustrating, day-ruining event that no one needed. Impulsively, she reached into her pocket. Her fingers found 2 quarters. Without a second thought, she stepped up to the meter and dropped them in. The flashing red light immediately turned to a reassuring green. This was a true act of choosing kindness when no one is watching. A small secret smile played on her lips. She felt a little thrill, as if she had just performed a tiny rebellious act of kindness, a perfect example of the helper's high, the secret to a happy life. As she passed the parking warden, her daughter Lily gurgled and waved. The warden, his stern face softened by the baby's greeting, laughed and waved back. He walked straight past the now safe car, his attention already on the next meter down the street. Sarah leaned around to her daughter, a conspiratorial grin on her face, and continued her walk home. Of course, here is the fourth part of your story, continuing the chain of kindness. As Masut's requested, I have integrated motivational SEO keywords and video titles, which are highlighted in bold. As Sarah and her daughter disappeared around the corner, another figure approached the now safe car with the bumper stickers. It was a woman with a yoga mat slung over her shoulder, her steps brisk and energetic. Her hair, a mix of silver and brown, was pulled back in a practical style, and she was wrapped in a long, well-worn sweater that looked as comfortable as a favorite blanket. She was humming to herself, a cheerful but slightly nervous tune, as if replaying a difficult yoga pose in her mind. When she arrived at her car, her eyes immediately went to the parking meter. She stopped in her tracks, a look of pure surprise washing over her face. She had been so caught up in her class, so lost in the flow of movement and breathing, that she had completely forgotten about the time. She was sure she was late, sure that a dreaded parking ticket would be waiting for her. But instead, the meter showed a solid block of green, with nearly a full hour of time remaining. She stood there for a moment, puzzled. She glanced at her watch. The numbers confirmed her suspicion. She was late. She looked back at the meter, then scanned the street as if looking for a clue. There was no one. The street was quiet, bathed in the soft golden light of the approaching evening. She put her hands on her hips, a gesture of mild disbelief, and a slow smile then spread across her face, a look of pure delight. It was a gift, a small, unexpected piece of good fortune. This was a perfect example of the power of anonymous kindness, and it made her whole day. In a tone that suggested she was graciously accepting this gift from the universe, she unlocked her car and slid into the driver's seat. As she pulled out of her spot, she saw another car slide into the space she had just vacated. She grinned at the thought that this new driver would also discover a small gift of free time on the meter, courtesy of a complete stranger. It was a wonderful thought, this idea of a small kindness being passed on, a perfect demonstration of the chain reaction of good deeds. Coasting gently down the street, the woman, whose name was Margaret, turned on her car stereo. A lively, upbeat song filled the car, and she found herself bopping her head to the rhythm, her earlier nervousness completely gone, replaced by a feeling of lighthearted joy. She felt a profound sense of well-being, a feeling she had learned to cultivate, a true lesson in how to be a good human to herself and others. At a traffic light, she lowered her sekra to window, breathing in the crisp, fresh air. She leaned her head slightly out the window, gazing up at the sky. The sun was beginning its slow descent, painting the clouds in shades of orange and pink. It was the golden hour, and everything it touched seemed to glow. An unexplained happiness bubbled up inside her, a feeling of pure contentment born from finding gratitude in small things. The light changed, and she pulled ahead. As she waited at the next intersection, she looked to her left and noticed a man getting into a parked car. He had already buckled himself in and was looking over his shoulder, waiting for a break in traffic. But Margaret noticed something he hadn't. He had a problem, and he was completely unaware of it. He had left his takeout food, a large paper bag, sitting on the roof of his car. Margaret's window was already down. She tried to catch his eye, and when she did, she made a big, exaggerated motion of rolling down a window with her hand. The man in the other car, a gentleman with a kind face, looked at her with comical confusion before pressing the button to lower his passenger side window. This simple moment showed that paying attention, the key to a meaningful life, can have immediate, practical benefits. "Your bag," she called out, her voice clear and friendly. "It's still on top of your car." The man's eyes widened in sudden understanding. He clapped a hand to his forehead, a classic gesture of forgetfulness, and his gaze immediately darted to the empty passenger seat. He let out a short, surprised laugh and waved a hand in thanks. This brief, helpful interaction was a lesson in connecting with strangers, a guide to a better world. The traffic light turned green. Margaret gave him one last cheerful wave and drove on, leaving him to rescue his dinner. The man, whose name was David, quickly unbuckled and stepped out of his car. Sure enough, there on the roof was the large paper bag containing the meal he had been looking forward to all day. He shook his head at his own absent-mindedness, a small smile playing on his lips. He was so grateful to the woman in the other car. Her simple gesture had saved him from a dinner disaster. Feeling slightly foolish, but also deeply appreciative, he carefully lifted the bag from the roof and placed it inside the car, buckling it into the passenger seat as if it were a precious companion. The delicious aroma filled the car, making his stomach rumble. He waited for the way to be clear, then pulled out onto the road. He didn't turn on any music. Instead, he started to hum to himself, a low, happy tune. He was practicing his part for the choir concert he was singing in the next day. The music was a joyful, uplifting piece, and it perfectly matched his mood. He felt he was living with intention, focusing on the good in his life and community. As he drove homeward, he watched the people of his town going about their evening routines. He saw them carrying briefcases and shopping bags, their faces a mix of end-of-day tiredness and quiet anticipation. He imagined them leaving offices and classrooms, heading home to their families and warm meals. Just as the sun began to dip below the horizon, David arrived at his apartment building. He parked his car, carefully unbuckled his dinner, and carried the warm paper bag inside. He stopped at the row of gold-colored mailboxes in the lobby and pulled out his key. He found 2 envelopes waiting for him. One was an early birthday card from his sister. The other was a simple white letter, but he didn't recognize the return address or the script on the front. Puzzled, he looked at it more carefully, and then he realized it wasn't for him. It was addressed to the woman in apartment 3A. The postal worker must have put it in his box by mistake. He knew what most people would do. They would simply place the errant letter on top of the mailboxes. But this letter looked different. It looked personal. The handwriting was careful and elegant. He thought for a moment. He could just leave it. But then he thought of the kindness of strangers he had experienced that day, the woman who had saved his dinner, the feeling of community that seemed to linger in the autumn air. He decided in that moment to pass it on. He would take it directly to the woman in 3A. It would require him to climb 2 flights of stairs, but he smiled to himself at the thought. It was, after all, great exercise. He was going to make sure the kindness kept going. Of course, here is the 5th part of your story, continuing David's journey and bringing the E is Days events full circle back to Alara. As before, the motivational SEO keywords and video titles are included and highlighted in bold. Holding the warm paper bag with his dinner in one arm and the misdelivered letter in his AE hand, David began his ascent up the stairwell. The air in the building was still and quiet, carrying the faint, comforting sense of a dozen different lives being lived behind closed doors. The aroma of someone's dinner cooking, the subtle fragrance of laundry detergent, the old, familiar smell of wood and polish. As he climbed, he noticed the rhythmic echo his footsteps made on the old wooden stairs. Thinking about the choir music he had been humming, he tried to match his steps to the tempo of the melody in his head. It turned the simple act of climbing stairs into a quiet, personal performance, a little game to amuse himself. This was a perfect example of finding purpose in small actions, turning a simple chore into a moment of mindful joy. By the time he reached the 3rd floor landing, he was a little out of breath, but he was also smiling. There was something satisfying about the small exertion, something rewarding about choosing to do this small, kind thing instead of taking the easy way out. It was a tangible lesson in how your actions define you. He stood for a moment in front of the door to apartment the 3A. The gold-colored numbers gleamed softly in the dim light of the hallway. He shifted the warm bag in his arm, took a quiet breath, and then knocked gently on the door. He waited patiently, imagining the woman on the other side, perhaps peering through the peephole. He understood the caution. In a world that often felt impersonal, an unexpected knock could be an intrusion. But after only a moment, the door swung open, and there, standing in the warm, inviting glow of her apartment, was Ilara. Her hair was still in the elegant braid she had fashioned that morning, and she was wearing a soft, comfortable-looking robe. But the most striking thing about her was her smile. It was a fabulous, genuine smile that radiated warmth and welcome. "Hello, neighbor," she said, her voice as warm as her smile. She didn't seem surprised at all, as if a friendly visit was the most natural thing in the world. This simple, open greeting highlighted the importance of human connection. In answer, David held up the letter. "Hi," he said, a friendly smile of his own on his face. "I'm your neighbor from 1B. I got your letter in my box by accident, and I thought you might be waiting for it." He could see in her eyes that she was touched by his gesture. A look of genuine appreciation softened her features. She reached out and took the letter, her fingers brushing his for a brief, warm moment. "Oh, thank you so much," she said, her voice filled with a quiet gratitude. "That is so thoughtful of you. You didn't have to bring it all the way up here." He simply shrugged, a modest gesture. "It was no trouble at all. Good exercise." he said with a small laugh. She clasped the letter to her chest, a look of pure delight on her face. "I've been waiting for this," she added, her eyes sparkling. "You've made my night." David felt a warmth spread through him, a feeling of connection that was far more rewarding than the 2 flights of stairs had been taxing. He stepped back, giving a small bow. "Have a good evening," he said. "You too," she replied, her smile lingering. She gently closed her door, the quiet click echoing in the hallway. Alara could hear the steady steps of her thoughtful neighbor as he descended the stairs, the sound slowly fading. She looked down at the letter in her hands, a letter she had been eagerly anticipating from an old friend. She ran her thumb over the familiar, elegant handwriting. This moment was a testament to the power of slow living, appreciating something tangible and personal in a fast-paced digital world. She walked back into her cozy living room and sat down in her favorite soft armchair by the window. She carefully opened the envelope and unfolded the pages within. She read the letter not once but twice, savoring each word, each shared memory, each quiet expression of friendship. Its arrival, delivered by the kindness of a neighbor, was the perfect, peaceful end to a beautiful autumn day. This quiet reflection was an exercise in cultivating an attitude of gratitude. The rest of Alara's evening unfolded in a state of quiet contentment. She made herself a light dinner and then changed into her softest pajamas. She found herself drawn back to the window, the same window she had opened that morning. She opened it again, just a tiny crack, and inhaled the cool night air. The day's warmth had completely faded, replaced by the crisp chill of a true autumn night. The smoky, leafy smell was the fragrance of the earth, preparing for its long winter sleep. Not long after, she nestled into the soft, comforting embrace of her bed. The tiny crack in the window allowed a gentle stream of cool, fresh air to circulate through the room, a perfect balance to the warmth of her blankets. As her thoughts began to drift, her mind turning towards sleep, she found herself pondering the small, kind act of her neighbor from apartment E01B. It would have been so easy for him to just leave the letter on the mailboxes, but he hadn't. A gentle, creative spark ignited in her mind. She thought about what small surprise she might conjure up to thank him, a way to pass the kindness on. Perhaps she could bake him something, a lovely, fragrant pumpkin bread, warm from the oven. It sent a perfect embodiment of the season. The idea pleased her immensely. It was a perfect demonstration of the principle that kindness breeds kindness, the ripple effect in action. Before she knew it, her thoughts of baking and thank yous had softened and blurred, melting into the gentle landscape of her dreams. She slipped into a world where every person in her quiet town was, in their own small way, planning to do a little something nice for their neighbor. A world where kindness was a quiet, invisible thread, weaving its way through the community, connecting them all. Of course, here is the 6th and final part of your story. This conclusion brings all the characters and their acts of kindness together, reinforcing the motivational message and incorporating the final set of SEO keywords and titles, all highlighted in bold. The next morning, Alara awoke with a feeling of purpose. The memory of the previous days, small kindnesses lingered in her mind like a pleasant dream. But this morning, she had a plan. This was the moment of turning inspiration into action, a key step in living a life of purpose, not on autopilot. After her morning tea, she didn't settle into her armchair with a book. Instead, she went to her small kitchen and began to gather ingredients: flour, sugar, cinnamon, nutmeg, and a can of pumpkin puree. The idea of baking for her neighbor from 1B had taken root, and now it was ready to blossom. As she measured and mixed, the kitchen filled with the warm, spicy aromas of autumn. The gentle rhythm of her work was a meditation. She thought about the man who had brought her the letter. It was amazing, she mused, how such a small gesture could create such a strong sense of community. She didn't know his name, but she knew he was kind, and that was all that mattered. The entire process was a beautiful expression of the joy of creating for others. Soon, a perfect golden brown loaf of pumpkin bread was cooling on her counter, its scent filling her entire apartment. She wrapped it carefully in parchment paper and tied it with a simple piece of twine. Then, with the still warm loaf in her hands, she made her way down the 2 flights of stairs to apartment 1B. She knocked on the door. When David opened it, a look of surprise, quickly followed by a warm smile, appeared on his face. "Hello again," he said, his voice friendly. "Hello," Alara replied, holding out the pumpkin bread. "This is for you. A little thank you for bringing me my letter yesterday. I appreciate you taking the trouble." David was genuinely touched. He took the warm loaf, its comforting weight a surprise in his hands. "You really didn't have to do that," he said, his eyes shining with gratitude. "It smells wonderful. Thank you." They stood there for a moment, 2 neighbors who had been strangers, now connected by a simple letter and a loaf of pumpkin bread. "I'm Alara, by the way," she said. "David," he replied, shaking her hand warmly. "It's a pleasure." This simple exchange was a lesson in building community, one neighbor at a time. That small exchange set the tone for David's entire day. He went to his choir practice with a lighter heart. He sang with more joy, and his fellow choir members noticed. After practice, he shared the delicious pumpkin bread with them, telling them the story of how it had come to him. The story and the bread were a hit, spreading smiles throughout the group. It showed how one small act can inspire many. Meanwhile, in another part of town, Margaret, the woman with the yoga mat, was starting her day at the animal rescue where she volunteered. The memory of the anonymous gift of free iced parking still made her smile. That feeling of goodwill stayed with her as she worked. She was gentler with the frightened animals, her voice softer. She spent extra time with a nervous, shy dog, patiently sitting with him until he trusted her enough to lick her hand. Her kindness, amplified by the kindness she had been shown, was making a real difference, demonstrating the lasting impact of a simple gesture. Later that afternoon, a young couple came in, looking to adopt their first pet. Margaret, remembering the stranger's kindness, approached them with a warm, welcoming smile. She introduced them to the shy dog she had been working with. The couple, touched by her genuine care, decided to adopt him. As they left, their faces glowing, Margaret felt a deep sense of fulfillment. A small act of kindness had led to another, and now a lonely animal had a loving home. And what of the others? The story continued to unfold. Leo, the young man with Freya, made a point of stopping by the coffee shop at the same time the next day, hoping to see Arthur again. He did, and he bought him a cup of coffee as a thank you. Arthur was delighted, and a new friendship began to form, proving the power of, from strangers to friends, the power of a single connection. Sarah, the tired young mother, found her perspective shifting. The kindness she had received and given had reminded her of the goodness in the world. She found herself more patient, more present. The exhaustion was still there, but it was now tempered with a new sense of grace. It was as if she had learned firsthand how kindness changes your brain and your life. And so, the story of that one magical autumn day comes to a close, but the ripples of kindness it set in motion continue to spread. It began with a simple act of help on a stairwell, a shared burden that lightened the load. From there, it flowed outward, touching a dozen different lives in a dozen different ways. It was a chain reaction of warmth and generosity, passed from one stranger to another, each person unaware of the full, beautiful story they were a part of. It's a story that reminds us that our small choices, our simple gestures of empathy and care, have a power we may never fully comprehend. They are the invisible threads that weave the fabric of a community, the quiet notes that create the symphony of a beautiful day. And it all starts with one small act, one simple choice to be kind. You are the ripple effect. Start your own chain of Sakini's kindness today.